Hello and welcome to Below the Line, the show about how movies are made. I'm here with my co-host Zach. By the way, my name is Andres Ramirez. How are you, Zach?
Doing well, Andres. Doing well. How about you?
Doing really well. How is life? Anything new? By the way, before we start, I just want to acknowledge a couple of things from the first episode. I know we missed the music from the end. We're still getting the hang of it, of podcasting, and the uh, sound failed. And there was also a joke that the sound also failed. So we'll promise we get better. But, anyways, man, how are you? How is life treating you?
It's treating me pretty well, not gonna lie. We're already episode two in. I want to take this time to acknowledge someone important who that we both know passed away this past weekend. Our instructor, Michael Robinson at VFS. Andres and I were taught with him almost 9 years ago at Vancouver Film School for directing. We found out over the weekend he passed away. So this episode is dedicated to Michael, who without him, we wouldn't have gotten the experience and also the know how knowledge that we could have done. So, yeah, just want to take that moment to say.
Yeah, honestly, it took me by surprise because he was such a kind, loving instructor. Like he really cared about us, really taught us things. It's such a shame. I hope that everybody in the BFS community is doing okay and they're well supported, in these difficult times. And of course, this episode is dedicated to him and to his knowledge that hopefully we're continuing to share with our audience here. Hey, man, I was thinking we should do a house check. Obviously, a lot of things had happened in the past week. But
Mm-hmm.
besides Daredevil, have you watched anything cool? I mean, I was gonna say over the weekend, but it's almost the weekend, and there's new stuff coming out. But have you been watching anything cool?
Invincible has been my go-to for the last couple weeks. I just watched the newest episode yesterday that had the Invincible War. Oh, that was incredible. That is very good subversive superhero writing at its finest, in my
What
opinion.
season are they?
Right now, they're on three. There's one more episode that's finishing up next week. The season finale. I won't spoil it for those who haven't seen it, but who have read the comics. Let's just say there's a connection to Robert Kirkman's other series in regards to who they cast as a villain. And I think this is going to involve someone getting revenge who may have been shocked upon his death in that other show.
Oh man, I mean, I can only think of The Walking Dead, but it's been such a while since I've seen The Walking Dead that there's a lot of people that have been shot.
I mean, the biggest one when a certain character was introduced at the end of a season and kind of turned in the next season as like the biggest episode premiere of the whole series. I think you know
So
what I mean.
the guy who got casted is Michael Cutlitz, right?
Not Michael Kotlitz. No, no. The
Oh,
last Walking Dead villain.
oh, it's not Negan, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, you know
Yeah.
who I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about.
To be honest, I haven't watched the show since season two. I think season two kind of took a dive down, right?
I mean, when it takes that long to produce the animation, and I mean, the time between season one and two killed its momentum. I mean, so that's kind of the problem with a lot of those anime TV shows is that you produce season one and you have to prove something, shooting something, but then when season two comes out and you prepare everything, then it's like, oh, the momentum's dead because everyone's moved on to the next big thing. I have a feeling X-Men 97 will probably fall into that same trapping because we won't see the next season until 2026 at least. And I mean, people are already excited for it. So,
Yeah, that's crazy. Maybe I should binge season two and season three because I really like season one, but I really never find out when season two came out. But season one ended with a bang, but I guess season two flew under the radar, I guess. In my case, I don't know if you watched. I watched Better Man, the Robbie Williams biopic, the one where he's played as a weird monkey. Have you heard of this movie?
I have, yes. And that Paramount, even though they didn't spend a whole lot of money, picked up the distribution rights and it bombed at the box office. I mean, way to think outside of the box and give a different outlook to a biopic. But I will say, who was this really marketed for? I mean, Robbie Williams outside of the UK, I don't really think has that international appeal that many people think of.
Absolutely.
Like, I know him as the guy from like Cars 2 who did that one song, Collision of Worlds, and maybe like one or two
Oh
other
man.
things. Yeah, I know. I'm that kind of guy. Who,
Well, I'll give you my mini review of the film. I thought it was pretty good. It's better than other musicals I've seen recently, which is it's saying something. There's a sequence in London. It's already on YouTube, but they play Rock DJ. That's the title of the song, and there's like this amazing tracking shot. It's so well directed. It is directed by the same guy who did Greatest Showman, and I thought that's such a good film. And I think this was very underrated. I mean, it is weird that he's a monkey in the film. I'm not gonna lie, but ironically, once you pass the first 15 minutes of the movie, you're like, okay, I guess he's a monkey, because they kind of portray his insecurities and his mental health on feeling like a monkey, like he doesn't belong. So thematically, it makes sense. And I guess that was the only way they could have him singing without singing. But it is pretty weird how he's having sex scenes or he's snorting coke, but he's supposed to be a monkey. It is pretty weird. I'm not gonna lie. So, you know, it's a good film. If you can find it streaming, I would watch it. The direction is very good. And apparently, the other country that likes Robbie Williams is Australia, because this film swept at the Australian Oscars. So I don't know. It's weird. I recommend it if you don't have anything to watch, like in a Sunday evening or something.
no, definitely. No, it was something I really wasn't into seeing in theaters, but I mean, I'll see if it's on Paramount Plus or Amazon for rental because it is intriguing me. I mean, the guy also directed The Greatest Showman, who was doing this one. So, I mean, he has that kind of musical style down that gets people excited and ramped up. But I think whereas Greatest Showman had the appeal of like Zac Efron and Hugh Jackman, Michelle Williams, and Zendaya, this again doesn't really have much to offer outside of that. There's like no cast that's like really or star power that it really needs. It's based on a singer that has appeal. I'm not denying that, but to be given that much money and just a very strange take on like his life story. I mean, it got people talking, but I don't think in the intention that it was supposed to, personally.
I think it was a flop because of the choices, but I think those are the choices that make the film watchable, if that makes any sense. I think the film is very entertaining. Like once you hear the songs, you're like, I've heard that one, I've heard that one. Visually, it's very well shot and directed. Like, the musical numbers are very well done. So it is really good. I really liked it. I recommend it. Um, so, Zach, I was wondering if you want to share, the state of the industry, like that Chinese movie that is making a lot of money. How are we doing with the box office this past weekend? How is
I
Captain America
mean,
moving along?
Captain America is definitely slowed to a crawl. I was just to read about this being one of the worst box office weekends for an Oscar in some time. So that's really disappointing and not surprised. I mean, until the new Snow White comes out, I don't really think we're going to be getting anything major for the month of March. I mean, we have this weekend Mickey 17 coming out, which I mean, yeah, you have Bun Jun Man,
Bon
I'm
Joon Ho.
mispronouncing.
Bon Joon
Yes,
Ho.
follow-up to Parasite, but we'll see how well that does and if he can reach more general market. And then, I mean, just again, look at Niza too. It's already crossed over $2 billion. Like it's in the top five highest grossing movies of all time, almost. So, and most of it coming from China alone. Like it's even surpassed The Force Awakens, like in terms of domestic box office. Like China, this movie's grossed over $1 billion, like $2 billion in China. So it's crazy.
So China might take the best box office this year. Then, like highest grossing film of the year might be Chinese this
I
year,
agree.
which is
I agree.
crazy. So something happened last weekend, which was the Oscars. So are you aware of what happened with Hulu in the US?
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? I cut off for a second.
No, that the Oscars happened this weekend, right? I was wondering if
Oh,
you
yeah.
know what happened with Hulu in the US. Uh,
I mean, it's the first time that the Oscars has ever been streaming. So I think there were going to be technical bugs. I mean, even this year with the Super Bowl and with even Netflix kind of going into the live sports market, like the Tyson versus Paul fight, there's obviously going to be glitches and things to work out. And I mean, it did play a part into the ratings, why they maybe were a little lower than usual, because Disney is only tracking the ABC Nielsen view. So we don't know how much Hulu people tuned in for that. I mean, yeah, they could have turned off as soon as stuff was glitching, but I feel honestly, too, this year was kind of boring in terms of what came out over the recent year. So, and not really much of an impact for what the industry was hoping for.
Yeah, the reason I brought it up is because for those that do not know, Hulu failed apparently during the broadcast, and people were not able to watch Best Actress and Best Picture. So the broadcast completely failed. I was just wondering, how was the viewing experience in Canada? Since you're in Canada, like, did you guys had any issues? Are you guys still on normal TV? How is the watching experience in Canada?
The watching experience in Canada was more only TV. Disney Plus did not stream it, so because we don't get Hulu up here, for those who don't know, and yeah, we just had to tune on cable. They reran it afterwards, and if you didn't get it the first time, you got it the second time. So yeah,
That's pretty interesting because you guys have Star, right? Star
yeah, we
Plus
have
or
Star.
whatever. Um, Same thing here in Mexico, but it is pretty weird because here in Mexico, the rights are not with Disney or ABC. The rights are with TNT, also known as Warner or Discovery, Warner Discovery. So actually, for the last years, the show has been streaming on Max, which has run flawlessly. So it's interesting how in the US, even though it's been live streamed in Mexico, for example, they really struggled to get it done. So, Zach, I was just wondering, you mentioned the thing about the ratings. What is the reality? Because I read mixed reports, especially on Variety, that it was only a 1% decrease versus a 7% decrease. What was the true of the ratings? What is the truth in the ratings, in your opinion?
I think the truth is, I think people are getting tired of the Oscars and just award shows in general, just because of how phony they're making everything to be. I mean, I'm probably just speaking for the mass majority or the Twitter, Facebook mob, but I mean, people really don't want to see phony people just, congratulate and tell people, like, oh, what's wrong with the world. Like, yeah, you're in the creative arts field, but all impact you're really doing is giving them a bit of entertainment and maybe just moral of the week for an hour and a half. So I think people don't like that glamorized life. They don't like the impact, and they don't like just how they feel about the state of the world right now, I feel.
I think it's interesting because back in the 90s, there were so many people watching it. I guess I was wondering if the Academy can go back to what they had in the late 90s, right? Which was a lot of people, you know, tuning in. If we check the data and the numbers in the late 90s, the numbers were really interesting because, for example, in 2000, you had 46 million people watching. In 2023, we had 19 million people watching, and the Oscars this year were at 19.5, 19.6. So I guess one has to wonder, can the ratings go up? Personally, I think that the show should be moved back to February, and I think the show should be shorter. Like, for example, I thought Conan hosted pretty well, but like the song that he had about not wasting time, it might have been funny on the room itself, but I didn't thought it was funny. Like, what do you think? Do you think the Academy can crack 20 million people watching? And
I think definitely they can. They just need to be a little bit more mindful of the audience. And I mean, even the last couple of years, we've seen a surge in ratings going up. This is the first time it's dipped since 2021. I think the Will Smith slap was a factor of that. It got people somewhat interested in the Oscars again. But no, they just need to start including more movies that made a box office appeal and, have those performances, have those, like, make it stand out compared to the other awards, especially the Golden Globes. Because, I mean, when people are watching these award shows, they do look at the glamour and they do look at the glitz. They want to see something that they wouldn't normally see. So, I mean, they're already spending all that money, and it doesn't help with the pre-negative buzz that comes from it, especially leading up to it. I mean, a fine example was the bad press Amelia Perez was getting, and the fact that I mean, we're jumping ahead a little bit. It already won 2 Oscars that I do feel was a little undeserving in comparison.
well, yeah, I think it's one of those things that I think in this year they had a lot of controversies. I don't know if the solution is for an actor to punch the host, because I think that definitely spiked the ratings, but that was an out of control situation. Like, that was Will Smith reacting, right?
Yeah.
Um, However, for example, I thought that this year in particular, the start was really strong, right? Like, they had Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo perform Wicked, but I wish there was some sense of performance halfway there. Like, I don't know, have Timothy Chalamet sing like a Rolling Stone or something from Bob Dylan, right? I mean, he memorized the songs. I think he could have performed or have another performance in the middle, even though they had the whole James Bond's thing. That sort of felt very weird because, like, of the recent news that Amazon
Mhm.
has control of the franchise. That kind of felt like a goodbye of the old guard. I'm not saying a funeral, but it felt like a tribute to what the producers have held in the last couple of decades. I just thought that they needed another performance or mix up the awards and have some big awards in the middle of the ceremony, because, like, when they started giving all the craft categories, it sort of felt very stale. And then it kind of picked up with the best actor, best actress, best picture, best director awards. I just felt like that middle part of the show was completely stale, and they just needed another performance or something to bring people back in. I don't know if you agree with me.
I do, to a point. No, I do. I do. Speaking on that Bond performance, it definitely felt like a eulogy. Like, yeah, this is changing of the guards. Like, Amazon owns the property, it's not independently owned. So, I mean, it's now part of a corporation and it's going to maximize its library to its fullest. And to an extent, I think they need someone to sell it. Like, look at some of the highest grossing movies this year. Like, wouldn't it be fun to have someone like, I don't know, the main character of Inside Out be a presenter? or get Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. Like they did have Deadpool in the awards, his stunt double, the one who did the NSYNC dance, but have like Deadpool and Wolverine up there. Have embrace like what the current status norms are. Start looking into what streaming has to offer in terms of its stars. Like I don't know, maybe eventually they need to start branching out into televised films a bit more, like the Golden Globes. I mean, not to bloat it out more, but just to start considering, like, hey, it's reaching the point where that's cinema or it's getting to that style of quality. If we're being honest, serialized seasons or episodic television or hell, feature length episodic. So that's what I feel.
Well, yeah, I think that's an interesting thing, and we'll talk about it when we discuss Sean Baker's speech when he won Best Director. But I wanted to start going over the categories. So let's start with the craft, shall we? What are your thoughts on Best Makeup? Obviously, that was pretty predictable, and it very well deserved that the Substance won. Although when I was watching the broadcast, I was like, "Oh man, Nosferatu happened too." Like the makeup over there was also pretty great, but uh, what did you thought of the craft categories in general,
I
makeup,
mean,
costume?
honestly, the ones that should have won. I mean, poor Nosferatu not getting any was a little disappointing, but I mean, Wicked obviously was gonna be the best looking in terms of what was there on stage. Makeup, I'm just glad the Substance won. I'm still a little bit bitter that Demi Moore won. Spoiler alerts if you want to know about my feelings for Best Actress. I mean, it is what it is. The Academy has their way of voting, and we have to respect that the craft is there for these movies. And I mean, Wicked was such a cultural impact for how it looked, and the marketing knew how to utilize green and pink, so they made sure of it, especially with how the Emerald City looked.
Yeah, and I think for best costume and best production design, they kind of had those locked in. I mean,
Yeah,
the production design, they built so many sets, some moving sets, like for that sequence in the library. And the costumes, I mean, they just had to build so many for the extras, not build, make. And I think sound was very well deserved for the Dune theme. I mean, beautiful movie, and I think it kind of makes sense. Um, yeah, and makeup, it was kind of the substance to lose, but I don't think it would have lost.
yeah.
So let's get on onto the spicy ones. Well, not yet, but we're getting there. So best cinematography, what were your thoughts? Because I remember we spoke about it, and you said Greg Fraser was going to win, but the Brutalist won. So what do you think of that one in general?
I mean, that was my second one, so I'm not complaining. It looked nice, The Brutalist. I still have yet to see it just because of its length and the time, but from the trailers I've seen, it looks fantastic and it's a pretty gorgeous movie. So,
It's one of those things where I think it was between three people. You know, I think it was honestly Nosferatu also looked great, and I thought it was going to be between those three. Like I watched Emilia Paris and I watched Maria, but even though Emilia Paris is visually stunning because I think that movie is very well shot, Maria is like a very nice period piece. I always thought it was between those three movies because Nosferatu uh, honored the original film, but Dune had one, I think, right? Part one won, and
mhm.
the Brutal was shot on 70 mil, so I always thought that was going to make the difference. So, best editing. What do you think of Sean Baker winning best editing? That was a very tough category because honestly, I thought Conclave was gonna take it. But what do you think of that one?
I mean, I'm happy with that, honestly. I think he did a great job editing it and it looked fantastic. As much as, I know you wanted Conclave to win. No, I'm very happy with Honora and how it looked and how it was pieced together.
And have you heard it was cut on Adobe Premiere Pro?
And Deadpool was also cut on Adobe Premiere.
Now it's gonna be the thing they're gonna advertise for the whole year. Like every time you open Adobe Premiere Pro, it's gonna have uh, an Anora advertising. I guess that's very good marketing for Sean Baker and Anora and Adobe Premiere Pro. So I just thought it was kind of funny that they're already advertising it so heavily, as if the talent of the editor didn't matter. Like regardless of the tool you use, I think it's all about talent and how you understand sequencing and story. So I don't know. I just think it's funny. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree with you.
So, this one is a funny one or an interesting one, not funny. International feature. Were you as shocked as me to hear "I'm Still Here" winning, or
No,
what were
no.
you expecting?
I was expecting that one. Brazil was very passionate that this movie would win because they are very vocal and praise their country a lot. So any showcase of that talent is evident. I mean, again, the second runner up for me to win the Best Actress award was Fernanda Torres. So, you know,
Yeah, I mean, I was shocked because I honestly thought Emilia Perez was going to take it. Uh,
no.
It's funny because I had seen "I'm Still Here" the Friday before the Oscars, and I loved it. I thought that film said something about dictatorships, about the danger, and about how to move on. And I thought Fernando Torres' performance was very subtle and very elegant. Like she carried the pain of the movie. What surprised me is that it was Brazil's first Oscar, right? Because they had City of God by Fernando Meirelles, and I'm
Oh, yeah.
shocked they didn't win with that one.
I'm shocked too. I thought it did one. Huh.
Well, I read that this was their first Oscar. So I'm just like Fernando Meirelles exists, and they haven't won one. I'm glad it kind of went to them. Um, so best supporting actor, like, were you shocked about Kieran Culkin taking it home, or were you expecting that?
I was very much expecting it. I think last week we even said that this is the only like award that I got right in terms of who was going to win it because no, he was just brilliant in A Real Pain. I think no, he's really become one of this generation's talents that is really on the rise. I mean, I knew him back from the old Home Alone and even Scott Pilgrim days. So I'm really happy to see that the brother of Macaulay Culkin has stepped out of his own shadow and become legit his own person. If that makes sense.
And apparently he's going for the EGOT because he's in Broadway,
Oh,
and I
good.
think he's trying to get the Tony. So uh, I guess we'll see if he wins the Tony in a year. But apparently he's trying to get all those awards and maybe add a fifth kid to it. I don't know. His speech was very hilarious. Uh,
Yeah.
his wife to start making babies. I thought that was pretty funny. I'll be curious to know who was the second place because I honestly think a lot of people had Edward Norton, but I think it's between Yora and Guy Pearce probably. Like Edward
Yeah,
Norton had a wonderful performance, but I honestly think Yora probably was a very close second.
I agree. I agree.
So actress in a supporting role. I know uh, you
uh,
thought that Ariana Grande was going to be the upset, but it seemed like Zoe Saldana had it locked in. What were your thoughts on that one?
I mean, yeah, yeah, that's all I gotta say. I mean, even like again, Isabel Rossellini was my other
Rossellini.
Rossellini. Thank you. Like, just I don't know. I didn't want that movie really to get as much attention as it deserved, even for music. So, I mean, it is what it is. You can't
I think
change
for
it.
music,
It was a good performance for what it's worth from her. So, I mean,
yeah,
I'm glad he won the Oscar. I just wish it didn't have to be this movie. So
I just want to give a quick shout out to Flo winning for Latvia, first Oscar for Latvia, and I want to congratulate Matis Casa and the rest of the crew on winning this. It's quite cool for them, and so congratulations to Flo winning animated feature. Have you seen that one?
Yes, independently financed. And no, I work at an animation studio for those who don't know. And that was one of our film picks for this month. And just a brilliant movie told in silence. And I mean, not to get into the technical or anything, but it used a free software that anyone could get online to create its animation and its characters and stuff called Blender. And I mean, the fact they were able to use that software when, you know, the industry standard costs them a lot more and win best animated feature for an international film is incredible. Like, props to them, hardcore.
What is the premise, or what is the movie about? I have not seen it, so uh, yeah, what is it about? Maybe there's people that have not seen it listening to us. Oh,
It is about a cat that's after his home is devastated due to a flood, finds refugee kind of similar to Life of Pi by various other species, and that they have to work together to survive essentially the whole trip. It's
fair
a
enough.
very beautiful movie that is told in complete silence.
Okay, I might have to check it out.
I have Latvian friends as well too, so I'm very happy to see that their country is also getting represented.
So let's go to writing. Sean Baker took it. Who was your pick for this one? Were you happy? This was a very competitive category because Corey Farget from The Substance was there, Jesse Eisenberg was there, The Brutalist was there. You could have picked any other movie and it would have been completely fair. So, what were your thoughts on that one?
I mean, again, Honora is definitely his movie. I mean, going into it, I mean, he won 4 Academy Awards for the night that he's tied with Walt Disney in a single award ceremony. But unlike Disney, he won it for the same movie. So, I mean, very great prowess. Honestly, again, I wanted The Substance to win. I just think that was a cool movie and really took its subtext very well. Honora had very not similar subtext, but I mean, there was another movie this year Pamela Anderson did called The Last Showgirl, which covered a lot of similar themes that I feel that movie handled probably a little more broader compared to Honora. Not saying that Honora didn't, but yeah, I just feel very
And there was
satisfied to an extent. But I mean, I would have preferred The Substance or even September 5th. So,
that's a very underrated movie, but it's very well
mhm.
written. So let's go with actor in a leading role. Besides giving the longest speech in Oscar history, what did you thought of Adrian Brody winning?
This one actually surprised me a little bit. I hope his
Really?
career kind of makes a comeback from this. I mean, it's so weird because he's worked with like Wes Anderson for the past decade and I mean, has had cameos and stuff, but he never really hit big like he did in the mid 2000s when he was in like King Kong and Predators and stuff like that. So I'm curious to see where he's going to come from here because one of the youngest guys to win an Oscar for The Pianist, now 51, basically just wins the Oscar again after all this time. So I don't know. I'm curious to see where he goes from here.
Maybe he'll wait another 20 years to do something and win another Oscar. I mean, he's so far in the same path as Daniel Day Lewis, right? Every time he
Yeah.
gets nominated, he wins. So I guess that's not bad company to be on. I mean, he could retire and just say, I'm done, and just keep giving long speeches, which I thought was kind of funny. But apparently, he did the same thing about shutting down the music in his first win as well. Like he had the
Yeah.
exact same thing, which I thought was pretty funny. I think he was well deserved. Like his performance is really good, and mainly the reason you can stand the whole movie is because he carries the film, and you feel the weight of what's happening to him as he immigrates to the U.S. So I thought it was pretty well deserved. Now, the award that broke the night, Best Actress, Mikey Madison for Anora. I know that
Uh,
was a huge upset because Demi Moore was supposed to win. I mean, she won SAG and she was supposed to win. But I'll just say, I thought Mikey Madison's performance was phenomenal. She's a very good actress. She's just 25. I'm really curious how she follows up. I wonder if Marvel might try to get her for something. I don't know which character she would play, but I'm sure Kevin Feige is trying to get her or some big franchise. But what were your thoughts on that upset, I guess?
but Andres, I mean, she already had a big franchise with Scream. She appeared in the fifth one, so she already made her mark there.
But she's dead, isn't she, in
Well,
that
yeah,
film?
unless the new one brings her back, because I mean, everyone seems to be coming back in that one. But no, honestly, like, I am happy for her. I think that's wonderful that she, is a growing talent. And just to add on again from last week, that literally once upon a time in Hollywood, I don't know what Tarantino did when he was finding these young actors to play these like bit roles, but going back to that movie and just seeing how their careers took off just in those bit roles compared to like these other A-listers, definitely I think is a positivity for film actors, especially her, that she's able to like break away from the Netflix or the network television actors and be legitimized in film. That's what I'm going for, and I'm grateful. So, no, very excited to see what happens to her next because I don't think she has anything lined up currently.
No, she doesn't, but I'm sure her agent is probably getting a lot of offers. So I was gonna say, shall we talk Best Picture? Obviously, another one. I
Yeah,
thought it was pretty well deserved. It was not my favorite film of the year. My favorite film of the year was by music by John Williams, a documentary on John Williams, currently streaming on Disney Plus. Reason why is because I love film music and John Williams is the goat. Although we can have a debate on that or another time. But Anora was a very close second. But yeah, I thought it was well written. The performances were really good. I thought it was well deserved. But what are your thoughts, my friend?
no, again, all deserved. I think this was Sean Baker's night. Having been a fan of him for the last couple years, I thought, again, just adding on to what I said last week, he needed at least one or two more movies in. I think this was his night to win. And I hope now people recognize him more that he is Academy Award winner and go back to his other movies. Cause yeah, definitely check out like Tangerine, The Florida Project, and Red Rocket. Like, it's a really underrated movie that I don't hear a lot of people talk about all that much.
So obviously, one of the standouts of the night was his speech about saving movie theaters. What were your thoughts on that? I have conflicting thoughts because I've experienced attending to the theaters in Mexico, US, and Canada. But what were your thoughts on his speech?
I mean, he's very much the same way that Christopher Nolan, Steven Spielberg, like all these high profile cinema directors are. Like they want to preserve movie theaters. I'm very much in the same boat. It's an experience, but they need to give a reason as to why we're going in. That's why Tom Cruise does what he does. He gets people into movie theaters because he does things that, you don't have the budget for or you need like a giant screen to witness for. Christopher Nolan, when he shoots on IMAX, I go see all his movies in IMAX because I know I'm getting a grand experience. There's a moment in Dunkirk I'll never forget that they're cutting from the sea to the sky. And the first time that you see all those clouds, like when the 70 millimeter IMAX comes up, I was blown away. I felt like I was flying, like the whole world just opened. I'm like, whoa, getting the huge scale of it. I mean, I know it comes and goes with trends too. Like we had three for a little bit, which I mean gave people the experience, and I think only James Cameron can utilize pretty well. And I mean, you see some theaters use like 4D or D box, or they use like those motion chairs to give like the impression of a ride. But I do. believe there is a place for it. It is an escape. It is a getaway for the night, a date night. It's a family day out. It's something everyone can enjoy. But I mean, we are pressed. I mean, it is expensive to go out and it is expensive to spend like that amount. That's even with the Tuesday pricings. So there is necessity, but there are changes that need to be made in order to keep it viable, or at the very least, the system needs to again support these long release dates. I'm surprised now, like it's taking weeks, not even for a movie to come out on digital. Universal is the worst defense for that. I think they just dump everything onto Peacock or streaming right away as soon as it's got 2, maybe 3 weeks in theaters without really making a dent. Even to my surprise, something like Wicked, which could have made a lot more money had it stayed in theaters for a longer period of time. But they're expecting Disney, Marvel, or comic book or big extreme numbers from that, which I think only Disney is the one that kind of restricts from putting it on streaming right away, giving their movies enough time to breathe or give them a longer theatrical window. So
Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm conflicted is because I 100% agree with you. Uh, I think that movie theaters are a temple. I love watching movie theaters. Like, for example, Better Man, I could have rented it on iTunes because it's already available in North America and it just premiered here in Mexico. But I prefer going to the movies because it's less distracting. You're immersed in the sound and everything. But I often ask people, like, when was the last time you came to see a movie, right? And most people only say the big budget templates like Wicked, Gladiator, Avengers, all those movies. So I think as much as I love independent cinema, I think there has to be a continued movement of really allowing people to go more often. I was going to ask you in the US, there's this thing called AMC Stops A list where you can pay, I think it's right now $25 a month, and you get to see three films for free every weekend, like every week, every Thursday, I believe. It's been a while since I've used it. Is there such a thing in Canada like that?
yes, we have what's called the Cinema Club at Cineplex. It's $10 a month. You get one free movie a month. You get discount for concession, and you get also perks depending on what the month is. It's not, it's a decent subscription service. I think AMC is a little better because you get 3 movies, but definitely it's not the worst thing ever that you can get. We have another chain here, Landmark, which I don't believe has a subscription anything. Oh no, I was wrong. They have extras, which is kind of similar to what Cineclub has to offer. You get one general ticket, you get discounts at the concession and exclusive offers and refills and stuff like that. So definitely we have options out here. Not as good as the States though to try and get them. But I mean
Yeah,
Cineplex is also investing $1 billion to give all their theaters a facelift to kind of come more into the 21st century and bring people back into theaters.
that's really good because I think in the US it's a really cool program what AMC has. But even though the Hollywood Reporter on the 25th of February reported that AMC had a net loss in their fourth quarter of 135 million, right, which is the December box office, which I think it's interesting because even though people are going, they're still losing, right? Because they did improve to the net loss over a year ago, which was $182 million. So I think what they need to do is build more premium screens. I think I think it's pretty silly that, for example, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Mufasa came out on the same weekend, right? That means
Yeah.
that both of those films are cannibalizing screens to each other. Meaning, if you want to see Sonic in IMAX or Dolby or whatever, maybe you can't because Mufasa is playing, and maybe your theater only has one option. And sometimes Disney gets that screen because they're Disney. So I think every screen should be premium or what they call premium. And I think that's how you make more cinemas. and people want to go because there's better sound, there's better everything. What do you think about that?
I agree. That's
I was gonna say maybe we can set it up for a potential episode, but do you think Sean Baker will remain as an independent? Because I think a lot of people saw it poetic that Tarantino gave him the best director Oscar, but my question is, has Tarantino stayed as an independent recently? And will Sean Baker follow up his footsteps? What do you think? Briefly, maybe we can elaborate it more in a future episode.
Yeah, just to talk briefly on it, I do think he'll probably be like Tarantino, continue working in an independent circuit with creative control on his movies. Maybe necessarily not rely on a studio system, but I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, we have David Lowery, for example, who does independent and studio driven movies from Disney. So, I mean, only the future can tell where things are going to end up in the next couple years. So,
So, to start wrapping up the episode, but I think it would be a shame if we don't talk about it. A new show premiered in Disney Plus, Daredevil. So, what were your thoughts on it? Very interesting two-episode premiere? Did you had a chance to watch it?
but we've seen this show already. It was on the streaming service Netflix that got moved over to Disney. No, I'm very happy to say that Born Again continues the spirit of that show. I think had they decided to go in a different direction or not stay within the tone that the Netflix show had, would have been a very big mistake. And I know Marvel was pivoting towards that a little bit with his appearances in She-Hulk and Spider-Man No Way Home, and even the way Fisk was depicted in Hawkeye and Echo. But it's very much the same style, close to the same writing. I mean, I don't want to give spoilers for people who haven't seen the first episode, but they reset the status quo pretty early on. And I just think the way they're handling all of the, by the week episodes, like having a different case with Daredevil coming into the fray and Fisk lurking in the background, and just the two of the conflict that they have, like with Fisk ruling over New York now as the mayor and Daredevil trying to stop him or, make the right choices, is great. It's very mature in how it's presenting its writing. It's not talking down to anybody, but it is still allowed to have that not in self serious that is present in something that Captain America Brave New World should have had. So, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really good. Like that opening,
Oh, yeah.
man. Even though the CGI was dodgy at times, that whole fight in that bar was phenomenal. And you know how the camera kept backing up into the set,
That
and
was
we
so
saw the
cool.
perspective kind of coming into the camera fighting. It was a fake long take, but I thought it was really well done. And yeah, it was a gutsy move to start the season that way. Although, have you heard the comments of the showrunner that apparently he spoiled season two already?
I have
Regarding,
not. I've been very.
regard,
No, I haven't. I don't think we should spoil our viewers either.
no, no, no. I just thought it was funny. I did have some problems. Maybe you can help me and help some viewers think about this stuff. So, first of all, I was gonna say I loved the White Tiger stuff. He's really fun and he's really cool. Um, I was just wondering, do you know in the timeline of the MCU when is this show taking place?
I think now, definitely after Spider Man and She Hulk, because I mean, he's still Daredevil in a sense. And he did, it's really hard to say actually, the way the timeline's been muddled so much and just the costume he's wearing in comparison. I do want to say it takes place after those shows, like sometime after he was Daredevil, and maybe he just has different costume choices.
Yeah, I thought the reason I asked is because even though they acknowledge Spider Man, I thought that Spider-Man should have been another vigilante. I know there's the whole Tom Holland rights issue, but he's a New Yorker, and in the comic books, Spider-Man and Daredevil hang out.
Yeah.
I was just curious: is this after No Way Home or before No Way Home? Like, does he know that? Has he helped Peter Parker? I just don't remember if he was part of the of that law firm. I'm not saying anything else because that would be a spoiler, but I just thought it was very interesting. Hopefully, Spider-Man gets to have a cameo in the future. That would be super fun.
Yeah, I hope so too, but maybe Sony will prevent it. I mean, even in No Way Home, we never really got the firm that he was working at Murdoch, so I don't know.
Yeah, that was kind of like the thing that made me interesting. So we'll talk a little bit, but what did you thought of the parallel journey that both Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin, and Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, are going with? Because there's a lot of hints, but I really love how episode 2 ended because you can see the thematic struggle that I guess both characters will have to fight through. But what did you thought of that?
No, I mean, even in the marketing, the two of them are the side of the same coin. Like, they want what's best for their city. One wants power and one wants justice and vengeance, in a sense. So, their journey is definitely going to culminate at the end of the season or even series, like, depending where season two ends up going.
So, what do you think we should expect from the show?
Definitely, I think we're going to get more of what the Netflix show presented, maybe in a more episodic format with just, a different case of the week and just more or less a more serious version of She-Hulk. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting. I'm told myself this is how She-Hulk should have been written. This is how, the way the characters should be treated. This is how, you don't have to be funny all the time or you don't have to be serious, but just real. That's all we want. And I'm all for a lighthearted show, but even that took it too far. And Daredevil strikes that balance without going to the extreme. Like, it's not super serious yet. Maybe it will, and you never know, especially when you're named after one of the most iconic runs of the original comic series,
Frank
which, spoiler
Millar.
alert, if you haven't seen it, Born Again from Frank Miller, excellent
Yep.
run.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree with you. I just hope, the beginning of the show, people go watch it. It is very worth it. It's probably one of the best MCU shows we have got in a while. I really enjoyed it. The cinematography is brilliant. But I just hope that they uh, are able to kind of hook everything together and the beginning of the show makes sense because that has happening in the comics, but the resolution of how that happened in the comics, it's also very different. So I'm curious to see which side they're going to, if you know what I mean. So I hope they're able to tie everything together by the end of the season and keep it consistent. Like I know we have the Punisher coming, and I think that's going to be amazing. John Bertel in the MCU is going to be amazing.
Can't
Yeah,
wait.
it's gonna be an amazing show, and we'll definitely continue talking about it. Maybe we'll do a full spoiler discussion when the show ends. But would you recommend checking it out to the
Yes.
people listening to us?
I would
Well,
recommend checking out this more than the new Captain America, if I'm being honest.
well, you heard it here, folks. We recommend using Daredevil Born Again, and the music. It's fantastic. It feels like the Netflix show. Maybe watch a recap on YouTube because it's been 7 years since we got season 3, even though this is not season 4, it's season 4. And you might get a little bit lost. I was, so I had to pause it and watch a recap. But after the recap, I was like, okay, I'm good now. So it is a weird entry point. So if you've not seen the Netflix show, you might be a little bit confused, but hey, that's what YouTube's for.
Yeah.
So do you want to sign us off, man, or do you have anything to say? We're almost at an hour, and I don't know if people. I think this has been a very entertaining show, but an hour should be our max. You know.
I agree. No, I'll sign us off. Thanks for listening and sticking with us. 2 weeks in. Thank you, Andres, for the great conversation and the Oscar recap and us nerding out as always. Yeah, you can reach us on our social handle now that we have an Instagram, below the line. So check us out there, or you can check out our personal Instagrams. I'm the Zach Houston.
And I am the Jaro 2096. Also, our Instagram handle is below the line podcast 2025. If you ask
Thank
why 2025, it's because below the line podcast was taken, and Meta doesn't like two accounts having the same name, so that is why. Uh, but you can also reach us at our email listed on the description of the podcast on Spotify and on YouTube. And make sure to follow us and subscribe to our YouTube channel, because who knows, we might throw in special episodes or lives reacting to something. So make sure to follow us and stay
Definitely.
subscribed so you're up to the newest developments of our podcast and our conversations.
Yeah. Thank you, folks, and hope you have a great day.